A goal, Quishbilly, Huddersfield Town. The most famous goal of Quishbilly's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Champion Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Right, welcome to episode 79 of the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. Coming up in this episode, fake tales from the Seal Stadium echo through the room, a point from a late deflection as a light flickers in the gloom. And there's a super cool Spaniard with his overlaps and crosses from the byline, and your weekday pundits are here to give you their lines. I don't want to hear you.
Let me out.
There we go. There's only one hipster in the room, yeah. Okay, everyone, welcome to episode 79.
Brady, you look like you've got earrings like Bette Lynch. I'm showing my age now on Coronation Street.
My headphones, mate. There you go.
All right.
Obviously
Sorry.
too old for Arctic Monkeys as well, Kosi. So everyone, welcome to episode 79 of Andy Takes That Chance. I'm your cornerstone, Matt Shaw. With us today, we have a man who looks good on the dance floor. It's Richard Kosmala.
Cornerstone, did you say?
Our favourite worst nightmare, it's Dan Pozza Porritt, Mardy Bum, Brady Frost, and ex-town keeper and Radio Leeds expert match summariser. And here for the star treatment, it's Matt Glennon. And a big hello to all of you pretty visitors on the YouTube channel. If Neil was here, I'm sure I'd be doing D for danger. But
Matt, you should have said the only man in this who's watched Huddersfield Town in a stadium since March. That's your intro. You cocked
doesn't
up,
really
mate.
fit with the Arctic Monkeys, Kosi. I don't think you quite get this. But so let us know what your favourite Arctic Monkeys song is in the comment. Why not?
We've got a wrong podcast here,
But
mate.
as always, this episode is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. So good news to everyone that the tap room has reopened. Booking is now available via www.magicrockbrewing.com for indoor and outdoor. So head over to the website where you can also get 10% off if you use the code TAKESTHATCHANCE10. So make sure that you do that if you're looking to buy some online. So hello everyone, and how are we doing this evening? We all good? We all good? Still reeling from that ropey intro, I guess. That's what.
Yeah. No, good. Well, I've just finished playing goalkeeper wars at my academy, so I'm a little bit on the stiff and sore side tonight. So
No
all good.
We're unbeatable, aren't we? 2 games. We are unbeatable. So
Right.
the future, guys.
Right, so good start. Rotherham 1, Huddersfield Town 1. So a decent point at the end of the day from the Seal Stadium. A good start from Huddersfield Town as well. Came right out of the blocks. Fraser Campbell had a good chance early on. We're seeing Town, especially under the Cowleys, we were notorious slow starters, if you like, but we're certainly seeing Town come out of the blocks a little bit quicker. How's it been from the stadium then, Matt, to see this team come out with a bit more intent from the off?
Well, just to add a bit of a context to what me and Oggy and either Johnny or Catherine, whoever's with us, it's quiet. For starters, very, very quiet, eerily quiet. I know you have the stadium noises when you're watching the games and things like that. So it's a little strange at times. But to see Town, what they're doing right now, you know what I mean? It's great. It's great. It's good to see them going forward, getting crosses in, overlaps, strikes. Yeah, Blackman wasn't overly worked on Saturday. But I'll tell you what, Rotherham a decent team. They'll have a decent season as well. But to get that goal in the last second, it wasn't a Tommy Smith 3-2 like back in the day before in the promotion season. But it was good. We could be positive. We could talk about a lot of things. We could talk about players having good games as well. Apart from boring stuff, which I've been used to talking about over the last couple of years. It was great to get that last minute. If it's a deflection or not, I don't care.
Sure, there'll be plenty of boring stuff coming up today. It's what we do. But Poz, Fraser Campbell had a chance early on. Good work from Mbenza. That was pretty much all that Mbenza really did sort of on Saturday.
A chance to block the shot for the first goal. Is that what you're meaning, Matt? Sorry.
No, Campbell had the shot and Angus MacDonald made an excellent block, didn't he? But What did you make of it then, Poz? Good early start. Campbell has a chance, and then 20 minutes in, it seemed like Rotherham maybe worked us out a little bit more, and they came out of the shell and they pressed us a bit more successfully, and maybe Campbell should have been out a bit quicker, I think, to the opening goal.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't watch it.
It's like your opening line every week, isn't it?
As a Yorkshireman, I'm far too tight to pay 10 quid to iFollow. But I've seen highlights and stuff like that, and obviously read reports and various bits and bobs. And yeah, it seems like we started well. As you say, Rotherham sort of grew into the game, from what I can gather. Yeah, I think Kosi's right. Campbell should have probably put himself. He looks a bit of a wuss, shall we say, from that strike. He seemed to try to get out of it rather than take one in chest. I think you've got to be a little bit braver. I think Matt Glennon alluded to that on commentary from what I heard. You've got to race out to that and really put him under pressure. He's a long way out, but it's a good strike at the end of the day, I suppose. So you've got to give him credit for that. Second half, lots of possession. I think 74% overall.
78, yeah,
78. Disappointing, only one shot on target though from that. And again, it goes back to that problem of not being able to score enough goals, which we've chatted about regularly, pretty much every week this season. Would a player like Karlan Grant being on that pitch made a difference? Would it have got us the 3 points? With that much possession and being in top third of the pitch, you'd maybe say yeah. That situation doesn't seem to be resolving itself anytime soon. So we'll come on to transfers and stuff like that later on. But in some respects, a good point. You've got a point right at end when you were looking like getting none, but on balance of play, 78% possession. I think we had 11 chances, only one on target. You've got to get, if you're having 11 shots, you've got to hit target a little bit more. And, you come away slightly disappointed, I suppose, from that one. Or I did anyway, looking at stats. But yeah, you've got to take your points where you can get them.
Yeah. So let's be honest though. If you look at the first 4 games, you'd have said, right, what points would Huddersfield Town going to have after 4 games? They'll do well to beat Norwich. Brentford are superb. If they get a point against Forest and beat Rotherham, they get 4 points. Everyone's happy. They've got 4 points. They did it the other way around. And I tell you that midsection of the first half near the back end, Rotherham, it's not the fact of working out what Huddersfield Town were doing. They're just a hard-working, stupidly fit, big side who had a successful year last year, and they just didn't give Town any room at all. And as soon as things started tiring opening up in the second half, that's when Town could express themselves with Toffolo just had a ridiculous amount of shot crosses into the box. Pipa as well as usual doing his thing in the second half. So it wasn't so much working out Huddersfield, it was just the fact that Rotherham are so fit, strong and organised. A lot of teams are going to struggle to dominate for 90 minutes. Town dominated for probably about 60 of it. It's not bad. It's not bad away at a team just been promoted and I've had a good start to the season. Should have been on 6 points if they'd have held out against Birmingham as well.
Matt, how bad were the conditions, from the stadium? Obviously, behind the screen, it looked horrendous Saturday with a wet day and windy day for some time. Was it as bad as it looked from the screen?
I was dry with a little pot of olives, so I was all right, because to be fair, I've got my new gilet on, so I was quite warm and toasty. The wind picked up, the rain's coming in. It wasn't the worst day. It was just a bit dull. It was just that you looked across on the skyline of Rotherham there, which, let's be honest, it's never a, never a bright sunshine anyway. It was just a bit dull and a bit crappy. That's all. But the stadium's lovely, New York Stadium. Set out nice, lovely stadium. So it was fine. Pitch was absolutely fantastic. As it should be when you've had 3.5 months off it. It was fine. It was fine.
It was a big call then to drop Ramoni Critchlow. We said last week that we would do it on this podcast. Rotherham are a big physical side, so it made a lot of sense to do that. But again, it's still, after someone's done so well, it's still a big call. But how good was Naby Sarr on debut? I thought he was outstanding. For someone who's not played for months on end, he's probably trained for about a week, would you say, with the team, because he's had to isolate for a while. How good? I know Rotherham's backed off quite a lot and let him have the ball, so obviously he wasn't under pressure for large amounts of the game. But when he was, I thought he dealt with it really well, and I think we've done well again recruitment wise. I know it's only one game, not to get too excited, obviously after one game, but I thought that was a great debut, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what more he can bring.
I agree, Matt. And sorry, it got me thinking, when was the last time we had a comfortable ball playing centre half that were really comfortable on the ball?
I'd say Hef. I think Hef.
Hef, he looked. What do you think,
Hef?
Hef?
Very, very good on the ball. Very slow.
Everyone who has similar hair like that and they do all the flicking the hair back. They all pick up for each
Anyone
other.
that looked like me, yeah, that was it.
He's got the Hef hair. Yeah, the Hef was comfortable, but then he'd give it straight back to him. He'd look comfortable and stylish, but not always end product. And like you're right, yeah, Rotherham did back off Nabizar a little bit, but he drove at them all the time. He was constantly driving. A couple of Cruyff turns chucked in there as well. Crossfield passes. A couple went astray. But as you say, he's been sat watching loose women on a bleeding exercise bike in his hotel room for 2 weeks. I mean, he's not even seen a blade of bloody grass. So
he used to get Netflix by the sounds of it. Yeah.
And do I'm not sure what channel he was watching. No, but to go in and put a performance like that in against a physical, strong, organised Rotherham side, I thought was excellent because he was under the cosh at times, dealt with it.
I also think his Brady will bring you in as well. I think his passing is going to bring another dimension as well. I'm going to talk about Jonathan Hogg as my spotlight player after this, but Naby Sarr, the one thing that we've lacked since maybe the Wagner days is a centre back that can spot and switch the play very quickly. Schindler's not too bad at it, but he's not Ronald Koeman or anything. But we've all of a sudden got a player now, especially with the style of play that we play. People like Rotherham and other clubs will pack tight. They'll pack tight in midfield to try and negate space for us, so we won't be able to play through. And what's very key is to have a centre back who can switch the play and stretch them again. And for me, this is quite an exciting attacking signing in a strange sense. For you, what different dimensions does Naby Sarr bring? I know, again, it's only one game, but what sort of different dimensions does he bring for you?
You're talking to me, Matt. Oh, right, yeah. Just had to ask. It's
because
you're looking in the distance. It's like, are you looking at...
Forlornly.
Yeah, no, I mean, shock, a manager brings in a player that suits his style of play and we look a lot better. I think Sarr looks like a good signing. I think we've actually got quite a good selection of centre-backs now with Schindler, Stearman, Critchlow and Sarr. I think I spoke to... I can't remember, struggling, but I spoke to a guy from Charlton Live, their podcast about Naby Sarr, and he was saying he'll get you on the edge of his seat, and he likes to take risks, and that's not always what you want to hear from a defender. But I think it is good, like Matt was saying, like Glennon was saying, he was trying stuff, he was trying to ping balls out. It didn't always come off, but it's good to see, and I think it does give opposition teams another dynamic to think about. And I think he, one game, so we won't, we'll see how it goes, but. He's a big lad as well, and he can help us in both boxes. He can help us defend. He can help us attack. So I'm pleased to see how he gets on. I mean, it was disappointing for Critchlow because he played, deserved man of the match against Forest. But Sarr was really good, really impressed. And again, I know we've criticised the recruitment team before, but you got to say on a free, fair play. I think it's a good signing.
What do you think, though, that it's a Corberan? It gives me a lot of art, does that? He's not here to make friends, mate. He's here to make the big decisions. There's so many people wouldn't have picked, if we'd have had a poll out, would you drop Critchlow? It would have been 85, 90% would say no. I love that. He's on about winning football matches. He's not bothered about pleasing people. And it's such a big call, that, because a lot, young lads kind of had a good job. So I'm really pleased to see that. And I really like the kind of this guy's body language on the bench, and I like the celebrations at the end. I think we've got a bit of a gem here, and I would, I've nothing against Critchlow. I'm one for making easy decisions. I'd have kept him in, but it just shows, mate, that Carlos Corberan is here to make a difference.
Isn't it nice though to have that dilemma for a change?
No, definitely.
You might have looked at someone like Critchlow at the start of the season thinking, who's a young lad, how is he going to cope and stuff like that, and now actually. He's proved himself that he can step up. So if Schindler or Naby Sarr are injured, all of a sudden you're not worrying as much that like a youngster's coming in. You've got a bit of confidence, and competition for places is probably something that we've been lacking at Town for 18 months. And if you've got two players, I'm a big believer that you should have two players that are capable of playing first team for every position, because it just gives them that competition. They've got to stay sharp, and it's actually nice to have that dilemma for once.
Matt, what's your picking order for centre halves? If everyone's fit, who are you picking? Because to me, Schindler ain't getting in at the moment for me, pal.
Matt Glennon, I think this is too. Because he doesn't usually talk to me, yeah. So Matt,
sorry, Matt.
I said the other day, I think Hogg is under pressure, and I think Schindler's under pressure. Absolute legends at the club, don't get me wrong, they've been fantastic. But I think has got a forward pass. He gets around the pitch, and he's got a tackle in him as well. And Schindler, sometimes it looks like he's towing a caravan. You know what I mean? And you're thinking, oh, is he going to get there? Now, more often he does, yes. But because the fans love him, he gets away with a hell of a lot more than Stearman does. He gets away with a lot more than other players do as well. And people just seem to breeze over it. I don't breeze over it because it's not my job to breeze over things. And I think Schindler's been amazing for 90% of the time he's been there. But when he goes on his dodgy spells, no one says a thing. And at the minute, Stearman, Zaha play for me because they were excellent. And yeah, Critchlow, still a young lad. Well, he's not that young. He's 21, 22. Is that young anymore? Is that really young? He should be breaking his way into the first team, but he's not got the experience. Town are looking to play forward. And no, Stearman, Critchlow all day for me. And the other two they just put themselves in the team. They're the two first names on the T-sheet for me, Pipa and Toffolo.
Kosi, I think you've got to bear in mind Romani Edmonds-Green's still injured as well, and he's very much in the mould of the centre-backs that Corberan's looking to play with as well. He steps out, he's quick, he brings it out, he can play. And, he's not big, he's 5'11", 6 foot, he's not a massive centre-half, but he can play and he's adaptable as well. And one thing with Stearman, which we mentioned last week, and I mentioned it earlier when people were talking about Zanka as well, when these centre-backs get stuck on the right touchline, they tend to panic a bit. We saw Stearman get nutmegged at Brentford, wide on the right, and we saw him where he should have been sent off against Forest. He's not comfortable out there. Romani Edmonds-Green is a player who is comfortable out there, and I think at some point this season, I know he's not experienced at the minute, but I think at some point this season, we'll start to see Edmonds-Green play more and more and more, and maybe towards the end of the season start nudging the two more experienced ones out. But that's one of my predictions for this season.
Goal were poor though, wasn't it? I mean, it was great striking from their angle, but I hate that when I want to see guys throwing the bodies in front. It just looked a poor. I don't know if I'm being too critical, but come on, Matt, if you're keeping and that's you'll be going. Yeah.
Campbell's got to get there, to be fair, for the goal, and that's lack of communication again. People aren't talking. You can't let a player just come and roll that far out and just have a strike. Why is no one talking? Why is no one shouting squeeze? What's going on? It's a decent strike, don't get me wrong. Sort of the Rotherham goal, so we're talking about, and no, it just didn't look right. It's way too far away from him.
As president of the newly found Josh Koroma fan club, I think it's my duty to point out that he was our top-rated player on Infogol at the weekend. But I think we can praise him on one hand, but on the other, we've got to say he's had two amazing chances on the day. The miscontrol whereby he would have been through, which was an amazing ball by Eiting. Something, Matt, you've mentioned, a player who looks to play forward, and that's not something we've seen a lot of. A quick look up and quick ball over the top, and then the shot in the second half from Toffolo, which Poz wasn't on the highlights, so you probably missed that one. But it was the in terms of XG, which I know Kosi loves, it was the highest rated presentable chance on the day that we had, and he scuffed that one wide of the post.
It can't be that good if he won on the highlights.
39%, apparently 39% probability he should have scored. But Matt, what do you think of Josh Koroma? Because we've been saying nice things, in terms of his arc, in terms of how he's developing. We looked at him last year. He looked a little bit slow, a little bit not heavy, but he looked a little not quite up to speed. You know what I mean? Not overweight, like me. But he just looked a bit ploddy. But this season he looks sharp and he looks hungry and he looks good to me.
His slope has gone up as his weight's gone down. You can see that he looks thinner, he looks leaner, he looks quicker. He said he wasn't fat at all. He just had a bit too much bulk on him. He just needed to take that down a little bit for the position he's in. I think he's been excellent. On Saturday, it looked like he wanted to try a little bit too hard in that first portion of the game. But then when he got into it, it's, you know what I mean? I think he's doing really well, and he is growing and growing and growing every single week. And Eiting's ball through. Eiting seems to have like a
radar, isn't it?
9 iron where he just chips it over the top and just lands beautifully into somebody's path. He did it to Toffolo a couple of times for crosses as well. And you could see Koroma just leaning back a little bit. He thought, come on, just get your balance. And he was just unfortunate. But you know what? At least he's in them positions. Yeah. At least the ball is being played forward into him. And it's not sideways and back and ends up with Hamer back in goal again. The ball is going forward and in dangerous areas.
Do you think...
it's another member. Sorry, Brady. I'm just going to say that's another member to the Josh Koroma fan club, I think.
No, I've been impressed with him too. Do you think it's just... Matt, obviously, you're the only one who's played the game here. professionally anyway. Do you think it's just
Cheers,
that's all right, mate? Do you think it's just one of them when he does eventually get a goal? Because I agree, I think he's trying too hard. Once he gets a goal, will he relax a bit and might he go on one of those runs, or do you still think he's kind of too young to show a bit of consistency?
He's not young again. He's not particularly young again in the grand scheme of footballers. He's just young coming into this squad. I think attacking players want to attack. And I think Carlos Corberán is giving attackers the sense that they can go forward and they can do what they want going forward. You don't have to come backwards, sideways. You don't have to keep the ball constantly. You can try and do something when you score. And he's trying to come in on that right foot, trying to get that strike a little bit like Grant does a little bit and has been found out. I'm not sure Koroma has been yet. But I think you're right. When he gets that first goal, I think we'll see his face just go, thank God for that. You know what I mean? I've got that goal. And he can just relax into the fact that he is now Huddersfield Town first team player, first team squad member, and he can just go on and get fitter, get stronger and get better.
Matt, how good are our fullbacks?
Oh, I was just going to say that, Matt. The thing is, if you didn't watch the game, you just saw the stats, one shot on target. But I lost count how many times, certainly Toffolo, more than Pipa, there was stuff flashing in the box, left, right, centre. It got me so frustrated because Carlon Grant or whoever should be there, Campbell.
Carlon Grant, at this moment in time, would probably sat in a deck chair on the edge of the 18-yard box. So we'll get into that. We'll get into that subject later on. But yeah, when they do get that established centre forward or that number 10 he wants to bring in there, and that sort of quality, even Mbenza, especially against Forest, was putting superb balls into the box. And as soon as they get that forward three working the right way to make those runs near post, middle, far post, across the keeper, that kind of thing, when they get that sorted with an established forward, because Campbell, the great work that he does, he's not a finisher. Yes, it was a world-class goal against Nottingham Forest because of the build-up and the finish. But as soon as they get that man who's going to make those dynamic runs into those places, I'm telling you, there's going to be no stopping that Toffolo and Pepper just constantly getting, on the assist sheet every week.
Toffolo were running riot on Saturday, Matt.
His fitness levels are ridiculous, does he?
I think they're both great. They're just both of them are just constantly up and down, up and down, up and down, and it's exciting. It's exciting.
Nutmeg someone the other day with a back heel. He nutmegged your right back, nutmegged someone with a back heel, then put a ball into the box. It's ridiculous.
It's amazing, isn't it? Neil's slating me on. I'm just having a look on YouTube, and Neil's on there slating me for XG. But I'll have to explain it to you again, Neil. You'll get on board one day. I promise.
He won't.
So let's. No, he probably won't. No. He's gonna reply and call me a shithouse. I can see it coming.
You know what though, Rotherham. I thought they were pretty limited, but they haven't lost a game, have they? But
limited. Look, they do what they do. They know they haven't got the money to go and get these fantastic footballers, this and that. But what they've got is they've got solid professionals. They've got height, they've got fitness, they've got a manager that's very organised, and they've got a sprinkling of quality in the right places as well.
He's a good manager as well, isn't he?
Yeah, a good manager, and that's what you need. And he's been there building now. They've had the successes of last year. Obviously, they got up with a vote, but you'll take anything you can. And as I say, they've started the season well.
Last time I went to the New York Stadium, it was for a speed awareness course for speeding on the way down to Wembley for the playoff final. I think that was my favourite visit to Rotherham because it reminded me of the good old days and the Tommy Smith goal as well, Kosi, which
they haven't bet us for 20 years, have they? They haven't bet us for 20 years, have they? Is that away, I think? Or
did they not beat us at Huddersfield when Connor Salmon scored?
Oh, sorry, yeah, it must be at their place.
14, 15. So I remember Connor Salmon scoring and thinking, bloody hell.
That was a low point. I thought we were heading back to League Two then. But...
No offence, Connor, if you ever listen to us.
I remember playing, just a quick one. I remember playing at Plainmoor when Andy Olsworth got sent off. But you have to go, the changing rooms were porter cabins, and you had to walk down railway sleepers with scaffolding at the side to hold on to, and it was covered in foam. So you didn't cut yourself on the end of the thing. Great health and safety. Absolutely amazing, yeah.
I love grounds like that, though, haven't you? Throwbacks and relics to the old days.
Not in a cold shower, and there's one for 14 people. No.
As a fan, I'm watching you guys have to do it. It's brilliant, I'll be honest. Yeah. But a player I want to put in the spotlight is Jonathan Hogg. I usually pick one player a week and chat about him in general. I'll throw this to you as well, Poz, about Hoggies. When Carlos Corberán came in, I thought Hoggies' days were numbered. I'll be honest, judging by how Corberán and Leeds played in particular with a deep line playmaker in front of the back four, and in the first team and the 23. So I thought when he came in, I was thinking he's not going to play box to box, this Hoggy. But you have to give him a little bit of credit because when David Wagner came in, when he first came in, he was very much a pressuring box to box midfielder was Hoggy. He would just run up and down all day. And then Wagner's kind of honed him into a defensive number 6, which I thought was he was a real, David Wagner used to say time and time again that Jonathan Hogg was the epitome of the terrier spirit. And I could see again on Saturday shades of Jonathan Hogg just remolding once again. And going to go back to what you were talking about, Matt, in terms of Naby Sarr running out from the back, stepping out as well, and Stearman to less effect, but he did do it on the right hand side as well. And what I saw was Jonathan Hogg acting as a hook, if you like, or a pivot. And what he would do is when Sarr stepped out, Jonathan Hogg would then step in, and then you would keep your two shape, and then he would do it on the other side as well. And Rotherham broke forward twice, and it was Jonathan Hogg both times stopping the counter-attack as the last line of defence. And I can quietly see Hoggy becoming an influential player once again in this system. Okay, he's not Carol Eiting. He's not going to play the ball forward, especially if he gets pressed. But I can just see Jonathan Hogg, in terms of this system, becoming incredibly useful once again to this manager. And I think it's a credit to Hoggy as well at 32, how he's so tactically so flexible and adaptable. And I don't think he really gets the credit for being that, essentially. I think everyone looks at him and just thinks, Nottingham Forest last week where he should have been sent off, he's gone in, think of him as one of those players who goes in and gives it. But I think defensively, he's a smarter player than what we've given him credit for, or certainly what I've given him credit for. And Poz, I can see him playing a key role for the rest of this season. Maybe not week in, week out, but I can see a use for him, whereas before, maybe not.
I think he's coming for some justified criticism as Jonathan Hogg. He's obviously one of those players that sort of wears his heart on his sleeve. He doesn't like to lose. That's obvious. When we're struggling, he kind of maybe takes too much responsibility upon himself sometimes. Certainly last season, getting himself into positions that he didn't need to be in, trying to do jobs for other people, maybe because they didn't have the confidence in their ability. I remember certainly a few for playing terrible balls to people who then got tackled, and then Hogg sort of gave them a bit of a bollocking, and he kind of lost his mojo a little bit. Again, probably because he was trying to do things that he didn't need to be doing. He's the sort of player, Hogg, that, as you just said, is his strength is box to box, putting himself around the pitch, making a tackle and playing it simple. And that's why it works so effectively with Aaron Moy, because, Hogg won the ball, passed it to Moy, and Moy made things happen. And if he can get that relationship going in there with Eiting, who seems very similar to Moy from what I've seen early on, then I think it could work. And I seem to remember when Wagner first came in, right at the very, very start, he sort of used Dean Whitehead in a very similar role to what you've just described. I certainly remember almost the two centre halves sort of splitting, Whitehead dropping in, almost to make a three. But as you just said, the sort of the game plan now seems to be for the centre half to move forward, and if Hogg can just sit in and sort of almost protect that back line, it kind of stops the need for him to be charging around here, there, and everywhere. He's sort of a little bit more reserved, but it's just that extra barrier, as a defensive midfielder, to break up the play and pass it on. A bit sort of. Like Darren Bullock back in the day, he'd win the ball and just play it to somebody that could do something with it, better than he can. So, as you said, 32, if he's reinvigorated and Carlos can get a tune out of him like Wagner did, then happy days.
What do you think to that, then, Matt? Do you think it's fair praise, or do you think he's still going to be a bit part maybe this year? And I suppose Lewis O'Brien is the real sort of conundrum there, and where he fits in when he's fit.
Yeah, I think he's a bit part, but that's not to do anything against his ability. Again, it's just the way the manager plays the game. Jonathan Hogg's been a fantastic servant and continues to do that. But the problem is, just like you fellas were saying there, when they play two up front, they drop into a three, which is Hogg, Sarr and Stearman, let's say, to allow Pipa and Toffolo to bomb forward and do what they do. But not everyone plays two up front. A lot of teams play one up front, just like Huddersfield do. They pretend it's a three, but it's not. It's Campbell up there on his own with people supporting him. It's like when people say we play three at the back, you don't, you play five. But in this system, the two will push forward, Hogg will drop in, make it into a three against two, and then it allows the two lads to get forward, and that's how they're going to do. But not a lot of teams play two up front anymore. We know that. When we cry out for the days of the big man, little man sometimes, and things like that. You know what I mean? It's old school. But sometimes it works, and sometimes you've got to go for that. Not a lot of teams do, so that's why I think Hogg might be that one of struggles. And when Lewis O'Brien comes back, let's be honest, Lewis O'Brien's he's an exceptional talent. And when he's up and running and fit, you're not dropping Eiting, and you're not dropping, you're not dropping Lewis O'Brien when he's fit. Bakuna, another story. That's maybe something to move on about. But Hogg will play a big part, I think, in the season. Just not a bigger part as he's played in the last few years.
What about you? Where do you sit with Hoggy in that midfield?
Sorry, were you saying me? Just cut out a bit then, Matt. Yeah.
Yeah, Kosi, yeah.
Yeah, I think the conundrum, like you said, is when O'Brien comes in. It sounded like that he wasn't going to play on Saturday because obviously we took off just before half time on Friday, but you could never write the guy off, and he had a really good game. But I have to say that I think sometimes when, I know it's an old cliche, but rain, wind, local derby, this is Jonathan Hogg's time, and I just wonder whether he'll be a bit savvy with Carlos and kind of pick him for certain games. But at the moment, he's, I don't think you would really move him aside, really. But whatever happens, I mean, he keeps showing that game, doesn't that Watford Leicester game now and again, and
in the box, isn't it?
And Hogg's in the box. I mean, like, bloody hell, you never see that at Huddersfield, do you? So it just proves that he has, he could probably get forward a bit more than not. But yeah, he's someone you want on your team, and I'm glad that he's still here. And it just gives Carlos, I mean, we're on about the centre backs there in competition for places. It gives him a good headache in midfield as well, especially when O'Brien's fit.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, Matt, just to jump in.
No, go on, Brady.
I think what's good, and Glenn, I'm going to refer to you as Glennon just so I don't get confused. But I think like what Matt Glennon said earlier, it was. I think it's the same with Schindler. Like Schindler's put in bad performances, Hogg's put in bad performances before, and I think they both need to not be relied on so much. I think that's one of the issues because, like you say, before this season, who was going to replace Schindler? No one. And he did play, did have some terrible games, and the same with Hogg, I think they need to not be relied on so much. And I think this is what's one of the positives of Corberan. And, we have players who can drop in, like you say, Eiting. I agree. I don't think Hogg's going to play every game, but he will have an important role to play. And I think that's good for him. I think they need to have games where it's not just on them. And like you said, I remember last season, like you said, Poz, where, I remember Jaden Brown getting dog's abuse from Hogg, messing up the passes to him. And I think they just need to,
Classic Hogg, yeah.
Yeah. It just need to kind of go back to, basics and simplify it and not have the pressure on them. And yeah, I think that's a positive for them to kind of be not transitioned out, but not have so much reliance on them.
That's a good point. Let's
someone like sorry, Matt, to cut you off again. Your players like your Johnny Hoggs and Schindlers and your Stearmans and your Elphics, and when you bring in young players through from your youth teams and stuff like that, there, as you've just said, them sort of players are invaluable, because they've been there, they've done it, and even if they're not playing 30 games a season, they're there every day at training, and sometimes stuff that goes on, in training and behind the scenes, they can just be there as an advice giver, or for young players to almost aspire to be like and look up to and be, this guy's been there and done it. He can, I've got a bit of an issue. What would you do, Johnny? Or what would you do, Schindler or whatever? So they're good players to have around, and if they need to fill in and they're still good enough, then happy days.
What about Pipa, Matt? Bloody hell, getting in the box again. Spain under 21s. We've got
500 grand, absolute steal, 500 grand. And people say criticising the club, criticising people, all this sort of stuff. What a steal. If that's the calibre and the sort of players they're going to be bringing in, you chuck your Zar, your Eiting, your Pipa in there, and he's getting a tune out of the other two, you know what I mean? The two of the three amigos as well. Then, what can be wrong with Pipa for me? He was poor in the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes. He looked a bit off his game on getting forward, a couple of bad touches. I thought, bloody hell, I hope I've not given him praise too early and he's going to be some sort of dud. But he just got himself into the game. He started going forward, and he just showed what he's all about. You know what I mean? He was excellent, and yeah, he's one hell of a find. It's unfortunate the international window, I think's closed now anyway. To find another steal like that, but yeah, superb. For 500 grand is bloody hell. I think I'm still worth about 500 grand.
Steady.
Today's market.
Someone to pay it. Man City
pay it. Yeah, definitely not the wife. No, but I was going to say, yeah. So for £500,000 to have a ready-made man, he was in the country 3 days after his first game, and again, someone like that is only going to get stronger and better.
Great points. Let's go to YouTube. I threw out the question on there. Pete Collins says, we always need somebody who can get stuck in. Against Rotherham, he was excellent. Mike Terrier 7-2 says, Hogg is the worst passing midfielder we have. Jacob Hurst says, more forward thinking for me. Midfield 3 of Eiting, O'Brien, and who is playing the best out of Daly, Bakuna and Pritchard. And that'll be a trick in itself, I think, with Bakuna and Pritchard at the minute.
Never been Pritchard, will it?
Robert Wood says you can have too many forward-thinking players. You need a battler. I presume he means battler in there. And then Phil Marston says you always need a sitting midfielder, otherwise the defenders get too exposed. And one thing I always used to refer to Lewis O'Brien as last season was Hogg 2.0. He's got the battling qualities of Hogg. Maybe not the physical strength, but he can also go forward as well. And perhaps we'll see Eiting drop into that 6 role when O'Brien's back, and Eiting will just be picking the passes off, and you've got a busy midfield in there with Lewis
74% possession. Do you think it's too easy just to say the similarity Wagner, Middlesbrough game, Wednesday game?
Too easy because they go forward more. This is more attacking side. Wagner, as well, because we've talked about it before. Lossell had more touches than some outfield players at times. It was across the back 4, back to the keeper. I'd nip for a coffee and grab a sausage roll and come back, and they were still passing the ball across the back 4. And at the thingy, I was like, Hoggy, anything happened? No, Mike, headphones on, you're all right. They're still passing. And do you remember when they played? We got beat by Wigan. They had 76% possession. Wigan had two attacks from halfway line, 2 mistakes on the night from 2 centre half, and that was all they had. Huddersfield had all the possession, all everything, but in their own half, it was crap and it was boring. But it got into the Premier League, and that makes it amazing. So you take that. But when you've got it and you're not winning and nothing's happening, then it's just it's horrendous. Whereas now you can see a definite want to go forward. And I reckon, I don't know, I don't look at in the stats for where the action areas were, but I'm guessing the action areas in the second half, percentage-wise, were a lot higher in Rotherham's half than they were in Huddersfield's half.
Yeah, I saw a heat map, and it tended to be final third down wings, which is obviously your Toffolo and your Pipa getting forward. And I think if we, as you say, if we can get that striker in who can be in the box, someone like Jordan Rhodes, I mean, maybe not now, but of that ilk, he'd have scored, 40-odd goals with how we played on Saturday. So
here we go, 78% possession, Poz in the second half, mate.
It's good. You can look, I do like a good stat, but there's only one stat that counts.
Oh, here he goes. The final screen.
272 passes, mate, in the second half. They only had 84. Come on, Poz, you love it, man.
They had 84. Is that right? Rotherham had 84 passes in the second half.
Yeah, caught it a flash score, mate. Yeah.
I think Rotherham just used to just blast the ball forward into corners, didn't they, just to get rid of it? To
be fair, they got their goal though, haven't they? So I suppose they were just.
Yeah. It changed the game, didn't it?
Oh, bloody hell! I think I passed more biscuits across my lips than that.
If we had a striker though, it was so frustrating. Oh God.
Matt, I'll come on to that, Cos. Sorry, I was going to say, what does this side lack, moving forward? And Cos, you've mentioned a striker there potentially, or Danny Ward maybe coming back in, but the window's going on. It's rumbling on domestically until the 16th. Yeah. I suspect Grant will go eventually. I think it's just a game.
He's got to go this week for me. He's got to go this week or early next. Otherwise, he trains with the first team when he plays, and that's it. You get him. I know when it's the 16th. The window.
16th, Friday the 16th. Yeah.
I think. I don't know what your language is like allowed on this podcast, but I think West Brom.
Say what you want, Matt. Pass the watershed.
It's 18. It's 18 million. That's what they're saying. That's a third choice right back in the Premier League. That's not a 19-goal striker from a poor Huddersfield Town team last season. You know what I mean? He scores goals. He scored goals in the Premier League. He scored goals there. Yes, he switched off a little bit at Huddersfield near the end, but he's a goal scorer. 18 million is nothing. And if they're not willing to give Huddersfield Town a chunk early on so they can go and reinvest in their team, you know what I mean? They're doing West Brom a favour as much as West Brom are doing Huddersfield a favour. And I'd tell them to piss off and get him in the team, and that's it, and get on with it, because you're only going to have to spend money anyway to go and replace him. So you're not going to spend that much money, obviously, but just whatever bit they were going to give Huddersfield, then tell them to screw them, and that's it. Maybe look somewhere else, or get him training with the first team, and he plays against Swansea.
I think you're right. You're right, Matt. I keep seeing a few Town fans saying, we should be selling him with, because I think they're reading a lot into these interviews and with skint, this, that, and other. But why should we? What was the guy that McBurney went for 20 million into patch on Grant for me?
But don't let West Brom dictate everything. You can't. West Brom, for me, taking them because They're just drawing it out. They've obviously got other targets. They probably missed out yesterday or whenever it was, the transfer deadline for International Premier League. They probably had a little cheap Italian or Spanish geezer thinking they were going to bring in. They've not got him. And for me now, that contract should be signed by Friday and done and dusted so we can move on and everyone can move on.
I think everyone would agree with that. And definitely, Kosi, I agree with you that Huddersfield shouldn't buckle on price. Certainly, if there's a value, stick to it. And like you say, Matt, Ollie Watkins has done fantastic so far, but he's gone for, almost 33 million there. And Grant's not in his ballpark, but he's not a million miles away in terms of goals.
13 million away, 14 million away. That is
exactly, yeah. That was my point. Yeah. So
so the
price is decent.
With no service. Well, you know what I mean? With no service, he scored 19.
How are you enjoying the change in style as well, Max? I remember the first game of the season against Norwich, you were quite not happy with the defeat, but you were happy with what you saw on the pitch, in terms of the style that Corbrand's brought to the club. And I'm going to mention XG again just to annoy Neil online. But last year we were 20th in terms of expected goals under the Cowleys. We weren't a particularly exciting side, and we've moved up to 13th so far this season. So we can already see a slight improvement in the fact that Huddersfield are attacking more, and there's more intent, really. Not so much goals, but more intent. How are you enjoying it, really, with what you're seeing, and how do you see sort of the end goal being with the way that we're playing?
Well, I did enjoy the Brentford game because Brentford are superb. To be fair, Brentford are an excellent team, strong, quick, fast. It was always going to be trouble. Then you lose your two defenders in the first half, two of your stronger defenders. So it was always going to be an uphill challenge. But yeah, the Norwich game, you could definitely see something. It wasn't amazing. Let's not get wrong. But they went forward. They tried to work the goalkeeper. They tried to get shots. They tried to get crosses. They were trying to go forward all the time when they got the ball. It was on the half turn. It was just different. It wasn't amazing. Not wrong, but I've watched every game. You fellas watch every game. Some of the shit they've had to watch over the last couple of years, in negative football, suddenly you're seeing a team against a very strong Norwich team, let's not forget, not lost a lot of players, added 11. Was it 11 players to their squad, spent a lot of money, and you get a 1-0 slim defeat, you think, we're looking out to get a draw today. Not often you'd say that. Brentford leave it alone. Then Forest, you move on to Forest. And I thought Forest was excellent. I thought it was a good game. Still slightly weak in areas, and you know what I mean. I'm not getting me jamboree and all my things out yet, but it was still a step forward. And I think Saturday second half again was a step forward again. And I'm finding myself saying more positive things, even about Mbenza and Diakabi, which before I had to drink a lot of alcohol before I'd say anything nice about them. You know what I mean? Now I'm saying Mbenza, wow, what a selection of crosses he's put in. Diakabi against Forest. Against Norwich, the first game, did his job. You know what I mean? I can't remember their right back who kept bombing.
Max Aarons, wasn't it?
Aarons, yeah. But he stuck with him, did his job. He did exactly what he was told to do, where usually, last season, he's up looking at the birdies. You know what I mean? Seeing if the sun's coming out, worrying about what he's going to do that night. He didn't. He did his job, and he did it well. So there's loads of encouragement. Even Ben Hamer's making saves.
I know.
What about the other guy beginning with B, Bakuna? I mean, he's just playing his way out of the team to me at the moment. I can't. No. Surely Corbrand's patience has got to finish with him very soon, I think.
He does what he wants when he wants, and as simple as that. And in a team, if we are going to say they are going to be slightly like a Leeds team, I know people don't like to say it, but they're going to be high press, high passion, high everything, then Bakuna doesn't fit in because he doesn't do it. He does it when he feels like it. He lost the ball the other day and he banged the floor and sort of had a hissy fit. He should be getting back and getting the ball back. It's not about you. It's about Huddersfield Town. It's about this team going forward. It's not about you giving the ball away or you thought someone should have made a run that your fantastic back flick should have gone to. You've messed up. Get off your ass, get the ball back and see what happens. I don't know what you fellas think. When you have a player on the pitch who pretty much does what he wants, unless he said he can't now, because he can do what he wants because he just scored goals and won games. But you have players who just, go around the pitch and pick and choose. I think it's sort of the other players see that and they slacken off a little bit. I think it's a psychological thing as well. When you see a player like that just walking around, do what he wants, I think other players switch off a little bit, not on purpose. I don't think it helps the overall team shape, team morale, team anything.
Matt, I see an immature player with Bakuna, someone who's mentally immature in terms of his game. Not saying, personality-wise, but in terms of the way he plays the game for me, he seems immature. And one thing that I contemplate is I wonder if Huddersfield Town is just not a big enough deal for him. Championship football, Huddersfield Town. It was linked with Rangers.
Yeah, same as Congola. He decided in the Championship, now I'm done. I'm going to waltz around. I'm going to do what I want. I'm too big for Huddersfield Town. I should be in the Premier League. And yeah, maybe Bakuna's the same. Maybe he's thinking there's something. I saw him linked with Rangers or something earlier on in the week or something like that. He'll have a rude awakening going up there. You walk around. Yeah. You'll have fans running on the pitch and dragging you off the pitch.
Well, I just wonder if it'll take a club like that to get the best out of him, because I don't think it's probably going to happen.
One of the amazing Congolo appeared on that video today, from the club's training ground. Woo!
He was running as well.
That was, I know, I never running.
They put in the stands. It wasn't one of them, was it?
No, I think it had a tagged Chris Wilder in the tweet, didn't it? Yeah, come and get me.
There was a price tag hanging from
Chris
him.
Wilder wouldn't touch him with a barge pole. No.
Yeah. Right, so it's good. So you guys, so Brady, I'm going to come to you for a moment. So this is just something brief I wanted to mention as well. So Huddersfield Town women have kicked off their season as well. I just wanted to dip doff my cap to them, really. They beat Hull 2-1 and Sunderland 3-0, and big things could happen for Huddersfield Town women this season. They've got a decent side down there. I just hope that the Huddersfield Town board continues to support them and gives them a little bit of help, in terms of, let them use Canal side like they have done previously, and just sort of gets behind them, especially with COVID going on and things are difficult. And Brady, you spoke to Laura Elford, didn't you, the striker who seems to start the season well, and things look quite good, don't they, for them this season, and they seem to be quite fancied.
No, definitely. Well, yeah, obviously the article's up on the website if anyone wants to give it a read. But yeah, Laura was banging on about how Jordan Winpenny, the new coach, has really improved things, and it feels as professional as it can be for that league. Obviously women's football is different and the investment isn't quite so much, but all sounds positive. I mean, Laura, I think she's got 3 goals now, or maybe 4, but she got 11 in 6 pre-season games. But yeah, Laura spoke about in the article about, how they got to play at the John Smith Stadium, and that was really good. They had a record attendance for the women's team, and I think it's just given the club more opportunities like that. Because women's football is growing in popularity all the time. I mean, I'm sure you guys know, but it was in the Second World War, it was actually really popular, and they banned it because they didn't want it to take away from the men's game. So yeah, I agree. I think the club, obviously they got to take part in the kit launch as well. I think that's good, but more stuff like this, I think it is more about the visibility and giving the women's team more opportunities. But yeah, they look like they've got a good season, and it's unfortunate it's been behind closed doors, because I'd like to go down and watch, because it'd be nice to see a town team doing well and winning,
scoring all those goals as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, good luck to them if anybody from there listens. So best of luck to them, and we'll touch base and check in on them over the course of the season. So, Kosi, let's move on to our glorious CEO. So Mr. Devlin. So I'm not sure if Matt Devlin listens to this podcast. He probably doesn't, I suspect. But if you do, Mark,
he won't do after tonight. If he does,
I'll be. A couple of weeks ago, I offered on this podcast to host a Zoom meeting for Mark Devlin, because host a Zoom meeting with a handful of fans in what would be a respectful environment whereby we can ask key questions. And it wouldn't just be this podcast; it would be people from outside. So we've got a good breadth of people doing so. Because at the moment we've got quite a large number of unhappy fans, quite a large number of people asking questions and not getting any answers, and the heat is rising in terms of the feeling of the fans as well. And I think Mark could really help himself by just having a chat with a few of us, and and that going across online. It's not going to get angry or offensive or anything. It's going to be quite respectful, like I say. So I just think the fans matter more than the national media do at this moment in time at Huddersfield Town, and that's just a point. Hopefully that get raised to him. But moving on, so he was again interviewed by Dan Rowan, and it split the fan base, I think it's fair to say, Kosi. My understanding is that he's doing these interviews regarding the pyramid, the football pyramid in particular, and not supposed to be doing it about Huddersfield Town, and he's reluctant to do it from that perspective, but he does get asked the questions, and he does provide the answers. So a couple of highlights from his meeting, which was on BBC, which was he mentions a lack of fans has caused a black hole of between 3 and 4 million, and that the club are trying to budget for fans missing for all of the season or people coming back in drips and drabs from January. The thing behind it really is that he's proposing a bailout from the Premier League and the government, and he's highlighting in particular the issues that League One and Two clubs are having in particular in terms of cash flow. Andy Holt from Accrington Stanley is also somebody who is worth reading on Twitter as well, and he's mentioning the same things. Man City again today have made a sneaky move whereby they've mentioned that they'd like to see B teams introduced into the Football League pyramid. So whatever we do, make sure that we avoid the shithouse elitism that comes with the top 6 clubs, because they've already bullied the Football League in terms of the EPPP system and Checker Trade Trophy. So, let's not get bullied onto this as well. So my question to you guys, so any of you put your hand up if you want to take the pause. I'm going to come to you because you look, Matt, well, you two, you can fight over this. This is great. So I'll come to you two guys. So Town fans are unhappy that a club who's got 80 million in parachute payments over the next few years and turned down a shirt sponsorship and haggling for, payment structures over Carl and Grant, etc., are effectively heading the bailout talk. Is this fair, or are we targeted specifically because it was Phil who went on TalkSport with Jim White 5 months ago, didn't he? And he kind of predicted this scenario. So I think Huddersfield Town are sought after, if you like, as almost like a font of knowledge, if you like. How do you feel then about this, and considering Town are paying £50 million into a bank account in Upper Hopton as well, and bringing big amounts of transfer fees in? There's a lot of ill feeling towards the football club, and I didn't think the interview was that bad, but there was one part of the interview which stuck out for me, which I just thought, I don't like that, Mark. And that was where he referred to Huddersfield Town as a community asset. And he endorsed the community value of Huddersfield and the jobs in particular that provides for the community, which I thought was a little bit cheeky considering they're making a lot of redundancies down there as well. So how do you guys feel about this in particular? It's a difficult conversation for Mark Devlin. I do appreciate that for him, because Huddersfield Town are not the only club and he's trying to fight for everybody. But how has it been construed, Poz, in terms of the fan base and with you in particular? I'll shut up now and let you guys.
I think just before I sort of move on, I think we can all understand that the situation is the situation. And I think fans would be a lot sort of understand that the club, when Phil took over, may have had a season plan, and then beyond that, a 2-season plan. And, he mentioned the 3 windows and all that sort of stuff when he first came in to sort of overhaul the squad. And things change. Things change in football. And obviously with coronavirus, things have changed, globally for everybody. I think the thing that they're certainly sort of getting my back up is there just seems to be absolutely no information coming out to Huddersfield Town fans from anyone at the club. We had, Phil going on TalkSport, basically. TalkSport he went on to say how
Jim White, yeah, Jim White, yeah.
Sort of telling everyone the problems that football clubs would had and will have and are having, it seems, which, at the time were fine. It's one of those, it is what it is. There's not just football suffering, there's businesses in every sector suffering due to lack of customers and stuff like that. And I think the thing, like I said, that's sort of getting people's backs up is the lack of direct communication to fans. And you see your chairman and your CEO on these national media outlets, and we've almost become the poster boys for this sort of campaign, shall we call it, to get a bailout. Is there something in that of, he who shouts loudest is the most desperate? That's one way to take it. Is it, no, as you've said, Phil, we're the first one to go out there, so naturally they come back to us to get our, ongoing views on it and stuff like that. I've personally got no problem with people from Huddersfield Town being, championing this cause, because there will be clubs lower down the leagues that desperately need this money. I just think it's a little bit rich when fans are not being told anything about, the goings on at the club. We're desperate for transfers. There's no news. There's not even sort of any rumours. Again, it might be due to coronavirus and press conferences and stuff, but, are we looking to bring in X in? All it would take is a little bit of communication to say, look, fans, we were looking at bringing X, Y, and Z in. We've not been able to do that because, A, B, and C's happened. Until this happens, we can't do this. I don't think anyone's scrutinising pounds and pence, this is what we've got, this is what we haven't got, but just give us a bit more of a rough idea of what's actually going on, so we can understand more than anything. We might not like what we're told, but if we can have some rationale and reasoning behind it, and it just seems a little bit egotistical for me that Phil and Mark are putting themselves in the spotlight for the whole football league, when actually from the outside looking in, as you say, we're getting multi-million payments for transfer, for parachute payments. We're actively turning away income because the sponsorship doesn't fit our expectations, or whatever that means. We are holding on to Grant, who's a massive asset. If we were absolutely desperate for cash, as poor as it'd be, you've got to take what you can get sometimes, and the two don't weigh up. On a weighing scale, on one hand we're sort of saying we don't need this money, and then on the other hand we've got as two main people at the club on national spotlight telling everybody how skint football in general is. And it's a bit rich us telling everybody how skint we are, but then saying to West Brom, we're not letting you have our player until you give us more money. So it's either one or other for me, and I think that's the main sort of anger from people that I know anywhere. It's a lack of communication, a lack of clarity to the situation, and what is going on. Just tell us. We don't need, like I say, needle and haystack details. We just need a brief overview of what's actually going on. And I think, as I've said before on podcast and various social media and stuff, whenever there's an information vacuum, people will fill that space with absolute nonsense. Some of the stuff you read, it's like, it just can't be true, but people jump on it, and Twitter, all it takes is 10, 15 retweets, and all of a sudden, it's a fact. Look at the Naby Sarr thing, with the car crash. I had people texting me about it and stuff, and something so, minuscule can soon blow up into something big. And if the club just fill those information gaps, people will be a lot happier.
So not the ideal poster boy,
right.
Matt.
Yeah, right. The thing is, whatever Phil says, he gets battered anyway. Let's be honest. He's no friend of mine. He's no thing. I don't know him. I've had him on my show. Everything. You've had him on here, and I thought it was excellent when you fellas interviewed him on here, and he gave a lot out. He's got a bit of bravado. He's got a little bit. He's a bit different than Dean. You know what I mean? He sticks his chest out. He's a little bit taller, and I just think people just batter him no matter what. Devlin comes out and says something, he gets battered anyway. And you're not going to have a Sean Jarvis all the time who's going to tweet everything he thinks every time he says it. You're not going to have a Sean Jarvis all the time. And I think, the fans have made up their mind about the chairman, and it's as simple as that. For me, there is a massive void in football. When the fans aren't in the stadium and they're not paying for anything, and you're not selling that box on the corner for £10,000 a game, you've got to pay Congola 30 grand a week. You've got to pay other players £20,000 a week. Of course, the money's going to start running out. You've got bills to pay. You've got transfer fees still to pay. Don't forget, these they're set out during the contracts. You don't buy Congola for 18 million, then pay 18 million. You're paying 4 million, £5 million a year. And if, Carl Grant, if West Brom are taking the piss with the money they're going to offer him, then you turn around and say no. You can't say I'm skint, so please, okay, I'll take 2 million now when you want 5. Well, we'll keep him then. So that's it. You can't be bullied because you haven't got the millions to go out and spend players. I think it's just a really tough time at the minute, and people need to realise that also the money men behind the scenes have businesses as well that have been affected by the coronavirus. We've all been affected. I've been affected massively by it. You know what I mean? And obviously a much smaller way than other people. I just think, how much information do people want? You're not going to come out and say, right, we were looking at such and such, him. I've never known a club who comes out and tells you 6 of their targets, oh, but we missed out on him because he went here. I've never heard a club come out and say that. They tell you as much as they want. At the minute, you're getting less because Dean was good at telling everyone. Sean Jarvis told everyone everything. You were spoilt a little bit, I think, by certain people within the club. Other clubs don't tell you everything, and especially at this moment in time, I don't think it's fair to be going after people constantly when we're seeing your Zaha coming in, you're seeing Pipa coming in, you're seeing players starting to come through now, you're seeing West Brom taking the piss. You know what I mean? I don't understand why the big rigmarole for everything to be laid out, because it just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen at any football club.
Like I said, though, I don't think fans want a full detail. We went for John Smith, we went for Fred West.
But when they do give more, then they get lambasted for not doing more again. So it's, for me, because I sit and I watch and read everything, and then I have my phone-ins afterwards. I had a bit of an issue with a fella after the game on Saturday. He rang up And he says, we just want to know more. So what do you want to know? Callan Grant, right, they want more money for him. What else do you want to know? Congola, he's injured, he can't go anywhere. What more do you want to know? And he couldn't tell me. I said, tell me what you are so upset about. What do you want to know from this football club that you don't know already, or I can't tell you? And he couldn't answer me. He couldn't answer me. He just done a narrative, the Twitter crap and all that, because it's, as you say, it snowballs, like exactly what you said, snowballs, then suddenly it's this massive thing. And it's like, it comes from nowhere. It comes from a little clown in his bedroom, writing a little Twitter thing, and suddenly it becomes huge. And I have to talk about it on the radio, and we have to talk about it on here, when some little scrote has just done that. And it's not right. Huddersfield Town is a fantastic football club who are going, I think, are going forward. Not with tons of money, because a lot of clubs ain't got some money. And as for the Premier League giving money, I think they should. Don't think it should be made to. I think morally, they should help the rest of the pyramid, because the rest of the pyramid has helped them. Look at Jamie Vardy, look at other players. We've got the best football structure in the world. I've played lower league. I've been in the Premier League when I started. I've dropped all the way down. I've played non-league. It's amazing, this country, for football. And we shouldn't let it slip away for, what is it, 220, 230 million to keep the whole of the structure all the way down to League Two going for the season. Bloody hell, that's 2 centre-halves for Man City. That's a bit of TV money. It's a drop in the ocean to keep this fantastic structure. I don't want to see another Bury, because that, I'm a Manchester lad as well, and I've played at Gig Lane many times, and I don't want to see that again, because it didn't need to happen.
Anyone else want to weigh in? Kosi, Brady?
You go first, Kosi.
Sorry, I agree mostly with what Matt said, to be honest with you. I think when I did seen all the shitstorm about this interview, and when Dan Rowan comes calling, it's always when Dan Rowan's in charge of a sports story, it's always a bad news story. It's always shit story. Someone's failed a drugs test or something. So why was it Huddersfield Town were really interesting to me. So as soon as I had this Dan Rowan interview, then but to be honest, I saw a lot of people saying, when we go into administration, or we're skin. He never mentioned Huddersfield Town hardly, and Dan Rowan pushed him a little bit. And I think people were kind of putting 2 and 2 together, and we were skin and stuff. I can kind of see people's point of view. Yeah, the ex-Premier team with the parachute payments and stuff like that. But I didn't think he said a lot wrong, to be honest with you. Part of me wonders why it was set up, and I just think you're right, Matt. I think if you did Zoom or a Q&A and stuff, I think you'd get lambasted. I mean, a good example I thought last week was the kit. So we would be crying out for some kind of deal, some kind of offer, and then the kit and the shirt. So you get your shirt, let's get it right here, get your scarf, get your mug and stuff. And again, the abuse was unbelievable under there and stuff. So I think it's whatever they do, it's just kind of...
They're not real fans, they're not real fans then, for me. They're not real fans.
But I think it is interesting they're going national rather than, kind of local. But I think to be honest, Matt, I think you're right. I think if he came on your show and what have you on a Monday or whatever after a game on a Saturday, I think people have just made their minds up on these two, and I find it really hard to see. I think even if we got playoffs or something, I saw a few people saying, well, if we win a few games, that'll kind of take people's mind away. And I can kind of see that to a certain extent. But I do think some people have made up their minds about Phil Hodgkinson and, the chief exec. And to me, it's not...
Going back to these payments, these Premier League payments everyone keeps going about, don't forget the budget in the Championship when they got promoted was something like 14 million. Top earner was something like 12 grand a week. You've got players here now earning 3 times that, and you've got still payments to pay for players that you paid 10, 15 million for. So you wonder where the money's going. It's paying for these expensive, some mistakes, some not, and wages. They've been in a different world, and they're still slightly in there a little bit because they're still having to pay for that world that they were in, and that's where you can't just go out and go, right, that's it. We're going to unsign a striker. We're going to do this. We're going to get him. You've got to be savvy. And right now, in any business, you've got to be savvy what you're doing now with your cash, because you don't know if we're going to get shut down again. Professional football might stop in 2 weeks. I don't think it will, personally, to tell you the truth. I think it'll carry on. But we don't know if it's going to shut down and bang, we'll finish till whenever. You've got to think ahead.
I think it's a good point. Sorry, Brady. I was just going to very quickly say I think it's a good point about the transfers, because we will get, I believe it's around 5 or 6 million for whatever it is for Philip Billing coming in this summer. That goes straight out on Isaac and Benza. So there's a conveyor belt of money sort of going out on Premier League decisions. In terms of the Zoom thing, it's very much Kosi, a very sort of a small control group. Whereby relevant things, will be asked if needed be. I think one of the things that comes up constantly is Canal side, and in terms of the money was set aside. I'm talking, in quotes, a certain amount was set aside for Canal Side, and certain assurances were made, and it doesn't seem to be happening. But no reason's been given for that. I think if they just gave a reason and said, "Look, this money's going here," I think everyone would just go, "All right, fair enough." And I think that's
my point, Matt. That's what I was getting at. Because they said in that interview, he were talking in football in general, and that's fine. But when your CEO and when your chairman are out there making that, comments to the rest of the world, you get a feeling in your, does this include us? Does it not include us? And all it would take is, after that, or even just a little article on website or whatever it might be, just to say, look, we're fronting this campaign. We will be all right because of X, Y, and Z, but we're helping other clubs out, and all of a sudden it just puts a different spin on it. I think it's a lack of anything that's sort of getting me a little bit riled up. And I think if we are going to be all right, just tell me that we're going to be all right, and then I can forget about it.
The trouble is,
I can get behind the campaign as well. I can help,
The trouble is, we don't know if we're going to be all right. Can anyone say they're going to be all right? Because we don't know when fans are going to get back in the pandemic.
No, but there's a difference between being. When I say we're going to be all right, what I mean is, are we sort of in overdraft, so to speak, already, or have we got? Because we've planned X, Y, and Z, we've got enough to sort of see us through.
Did you feel that interview? Did you feel that?
He did say that, to be fair to Mark, didn't he, in the interview? He did say we were planning for the worst case scenario. So I think.
But did you feel that interview? Because I get the impression that people watch that interview and we're knackered. I just didn't get that.
No, I
didn't get that.
No, I think there's a big leap been made.
It just goes back to that, them who shout the loudest are the most needy, and that's kind of how I saw it. And like you said, looking at what we've done very recently in regards to turning money away, it then becomes a bit rich to then be sort of banging your begging bowl, so to speak. If we're banging it on behalf of everybody else and everyone's in it together, then, absolutely fine, no problem with that. But if we're doing it just for Huddersfield Town, then, communicate that, just to be a little bit more open and honest. We don't need, like I say, thread through needle. We just need a little bit more of an overview of where we stand, and what do we expect? What are the expectations? And then we know where we stand as fans. Because if we're expecting X, Y, and Z, and there's absolutely no way of getting to that, let us know that, and then we can lower those expectations a little bit. And then everyone's sort of singing from the same hymn sheet.
Where's it all? I didn't know. Tony Stewart said today in the Yorkshire Post he thinks there'll be 8 clubs will be maybe in administration by the end of this month.
That depends on what the bailout, though, because the Premier League are talking to the EFL, aren't they, at this moment in time? The FA have got plenty of cash, the EFL have, and so have the Premier League. And let's not be honest, they've just got to get them Swiss bank accounts out and start dishing a bit of cash out. Not to your badly runs, not to your chairmen, not to anything. I'm talking direct, paying wages, paying everything that needs to be done, not to line someone's pockets like that clown shoe that took Berry out of existence. I'm talking about.
They were talking about 50 million, Matt, though. That I don't think they want to give they said, what is it, 250 million they need? Is Rick Barry saying?
That's all 72, I think. But I don't think every club in the 72 needs massive bailouts. I just think you need the ones who really rely on the fans. I don't know. I don't know the fans ins and outs. I just think we should all be in it together. As in, I think the whole world should be in it together, to be fair. But especially the footballing world, we should all be in it together, and we make sure everyone survives this the best we can. You can't just have £1 billion sat in a pot in the Premier League pot and it stays there, and then Rochdale disappears, and someone else disappears from the pyramid, and you've got that sat there. What's the point of it all?
It's got to be ring fenced as well, Matt, because if they do give a bailout, people can't just take the piss and start buying players again. You
can do all that. That's what I'm saying. I don't know the fan details. What I'm saying, it could just be put straight in there for wages, for players, for just wages and stuff. You can't go out and spend £1 million on someone else. We're doing this. You survive financially.
Maybe a transfer embargo for these clubs. If you take this bailout, then sign any players, something like that. Yeah,
that's exactly how it should be. If you're going to ask for money, then it's like, who was it? Liverpool putting their staff on furlough. Are you winding me up? Then you go and spend £50 million on players. Get a grip. That was the first week of the pandemic, I think. I sat in my garden.
Arsenal as well the other day, didn't they?
What the hell's going on here?
You know what, though? It's absolutely screwed. I mean, like Rugby Union, Rugby League have had a bailout from the government. And you look at the players that, let's be honest, there's guys that are left at Huddersfield Town that will not get paid like that anywhere else. The window, I know we've got another 10 days to come. There's hardly any business. I mean, Burnley haven't signed anyone. They're struggling. Anyone else outside them top 6 or 8, There's nothing. And no surprise, like Schindler's staying at Huddersfield Town because he's getting paid good money and he'll not get that anywhere else. That's the reason why a lot of these teams in the Championship have got these guys that are staying on with them. Danny Welbeck, did you see that this week? It's available. Did you see what he was getting paid? They can't afford his wages anymore. It's incredible. 100 grand a week. It's just like, they're knackered, man. The game is, it's so scary.
That went years ago, but we've got to keep it.
Brady, force your way in onto this one. Let's hear what you've got.
Hard. It's a passionate subject. I think the thing is, I agree with a lot of the points. I think there's two things here, and I agree with everyone. But like, I can see why they're speaking to national media. Town. We've seen it with other clubs. It's to put pressure on this bailout from the government or from the Premier League or both. That's what it's for. I can understand the concerns. I think it's all about context, though. I think the reason I feel aggrieved sometimes as a supporter is because we've had 2 years of bad results, bad stuff happening to the club. And I think the thing that is frustrating, and I agree with you to a point, Matt, like, you know, what can they do? They're not going to be so open. And I appreciate that. I think it's the context, though. Everyone feels like we've had a raw deal for 2 years. Whether that's right or wrong, that's how the fans feel. And I think it comes across a little bit tone deaf when they are talking to other people. It seems like they're kind of ignoring us. I think we'll probably come on to it in one of my questions, but I think there's an issue with a club when you see rumours flying around and how quickly people pick it up. And I think if a club's doing well and results, and I think this is, being completely honest, results driven as well. I think if we're winning, people don't give a crap about half this stuff. But I think when the club's been doing bad, we've not been getting a lot of communication and there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. I think it's a bad situation when rumours, right or wrong, come up and people are happy to believe them. I mean, we'll probably come on to the Andy Booth thing, but like, I think as well how he replied to, I know Twitter's a toxic place, but how Devlin replied to that for me was a bit not the best as well. But I think it's quite emotive, it's quite toxic at the moment, and I think that's a lot of it. I do feel like we're getting not addressed.
Every time someone puts something on Twitter, the club have to come out and deny it or say it's true. You can't do that for every single thing that gets put on Twitter.
No, I agree.
We'll move on to Andy Booth thing later on and other things you want to talk about. But everything you put on there, or you down at the max, or your other stuff that people go on, the club can't come out and say, "Oh, no, that's not true." Yeah, I saw it on Twitter. No, that's not right. And Phil's
I agree.
Conference with his tie on and have his save lies, do everything thing there, banners out, and start going through a Twitter poll, because obviously that man needs to stay off Twitter anyway, which we know about. But it's there's only so much you can, we cannot confirm or deny what's going on today. And
they did do the ATT panel, the Altogether Town panel, did the other day, and they did print some notes from that, and maybe people who want to ask questions maybe need to use that as an outlet in future going forward.
Matt,
shall we read some questions?
Sorry, finishing the stadium thing, but this week there seems to be a massive pressure. The clubs have gone up a gear. We've seen tweets from a lot of clubs. Why can't we get back in? This Royal Albert Hall thing's been thrown in. It's a big petition going EFL. I mean, all I can say at the moment, I think it's good to be we're not playing in Scotland because there's no chance of a game there anytime soon. But it's, again, I've no different opinion to last week, but I think clubs are so frustrated. They can't understand why they can't have socially distanced football. And Matt, you've been in the grounds. Why can't we have it? You've been in the stadiums. Can we have it?
All you've got to say to the fans is, it might take a little bit longer to get in. It might take a little bit longer to get out. And that's it. And everyone will be happy with that. I don't know how they decide who gets tickets. But yeah, you could have a third of the fans in there social distance. You're outdoors. You've got to wear your masks, all that sort of stuff. So you're not going to, apart from when you're belting something out, I'm sure that's not going to happen so much. But, they've got to do a risk assessment and see what the chances really are when you're outdoors. If you can go to cinema and watch, watch the game. Is it Chesterfield that are showing the game on a big screen in their lounge with the blinds closed so you can't actually see the pitch? So the pitch is there. You're in the lounge watching it on a big screen, but you can't open the curtains to watch it live.
The game got abandoned anyway. But I mean, I don't know if it's a call in the bluff, but there were a story coming out tonight that the clubs are pushing ahead with plans to show the game in the ground and getting fans in. I think they're doing everything they can to get that pressure on the sports minister really to do something. But
it's fresh air.
the big Tesco next to Chesterfield. They can all go stand in that, but they can't go stand in the football ground. It seems a little bit daft, doesn't it? But there is a Kosi, there is a thing you can sign. Fill me in with the words. There's a let me go to my notes very quickly. Thank you very much. Don't know why I had a blank on the word petition, but yeah. So there's a petition online which is going around at the minute. If you think that it would help if you sign that, then you can sign. I believe it's got over 100,000 signatures, so it will be discussed in Parliament.
It's interesting, Matt. The clubs seem to. I mean, Shrewsbury. I saw a few clubs that are. It's almost. I don't know if it's just we need fans in, or we're knackered, or it's just they've just had enough situation. But this week, there's been a lot of clubs gone really big on it. Not support associations, but the actual club copying Boris Johnson in tweets and stuff like that. It feels like it's coming to a head now.
Well, it was supposed to happen last week, wasn't it? So everyone was planning for fans. Again, Chesterfield spent thousands of pounds of getting all the pigeon shite out of the stands and everything else to get the fans back in. Then at the final minute, they got pulled. So they spent all this money investing getting the stadium ready to rock and roll and go for the National League start of the season, and then nope, you're not allowed them in. So again, this week they were supposed to be in there, so now they've got to start ramping up the pressure to get them in there. They should be allowing a certain amount in. It's not rocket science. It's not hard.
Excellent. Let's read some comments out then from what we've had going on. So let's have a look at Doug Barnett. Says quite right too about Devlin and PH. I don't understand why they're both reluctant to talk to the fans for every internet troll. There are plenty of reasonable fans with reasonable questions. But yeah, I think you're very right, Matt, in the fact that they can't address every room. Otherwise, they'll be just sat there on social media all day. Daniel Sanderson says, I don't mind them doing interviews with the BBC and TalkSport. Why aren't they talking to the fans? Last Q&A was in February. Let's move it down a little bit. Rob Wood said he had the conversation about it with Phil about 3 weeks ago, and he said it would improve. So that's good to know. Paul Gibson says, I didn't see much wrong with interviews as long as it's alongside communication with fans. Chris Watson says, I don't think Phil even mentioned or commented on why Cowley was sacked. I think he did. There's Lee Bromby was sent out to do that. And then Paul Gibson says he can understand Phil stepping back with the way his relationship with the fans has gone, but he should be pushing Devlin Bromby, etc., to be more visible, which I think he is doing. But I think, Matt, you're very right in saying that Sean Jarvis and Dean Hall were so visible that it's probably set some unrealistic expectations for whoever would follow them. And I think that was always going to be a difficult transition from that, whoever came in. And then there's a little bit more now. So Chris Watson said, there's no generic statements. Remember when Cowley said they'll always get rubbish off fans, people paying for season tickets, etc. And then I'll scroll down to the bottom. And it's most of the stuff going on. So Chris Green says it's good to see that there's a petition going on. It's not good enough that clubs were making their fans ready for the fans' return, just for the government to change their mind. And I think you're right in mentioning the Royal Albert Hall, etc., and going to the cinema, which is indoors. You can sit next to each other indoors at the cinema, where you're more likely to have germ spread than outdoors at the football. So there we go. So let's move on to the next topic, and it is Mr. Frost. I believe you've been busy on Twitter with a couple of questions.
Yeah, it's actually quite related to what we're talking about. The first one was from Mr. Hurst. And yeah, this is to anyone. But what is it going to take to unite the fans behind the chairman and the board? Do you think it's a winning team or a new owner? Mr. Hurst said, personally, I find the ignorance about financial matters that some fans openly display on Twitter shocking. So yeah, I suppose I'll start with you, Matt, because obviously you're there. What do you think it is going to take to unite the fans behind the board and the chairman?
I think it's going to have to be a good centre forward coming in. I think the Carlos Corberán style of play really taking hold, and people believing in why he set the Cowleys because it was never going to be like this. It was never going to be like this. I don't care what they say or what they spout. It was never going to be this. And you know what I mean? You saw the behaviour on the sidelines and things. It wasn't the Huddersfield Town way of doing things. I think, yeah, when the team starts becoming successful, as simple as that. It's the same in football. When you're not winning, you know what I mean? When people aren't being communicated as much as you'd like them to be, Chinese whispers, which is now Twitter, and everything else starts going, and people become poisonous with it. I don't believe the majority of the real football fans, real town fans. I think they're a lot more measured than some of the, as Poz said there, the ones who the majority shout the loudest and get heard more than anyone. I just think a winning team and a winning way of football and bringing in some more quality and spending, a little bit of money, not fortunes, because nobody is. And yeah, I think just tweak a few things, like you say, players a little bit more open with the fans, a little more bit this and that, and it's just going to take time. It's going to take time, but to believe him, because as you say, and Kosi was saying, people have made their mind up, which is wrong as early as they have, and they've listened to other people and allowed their minds to be poisoned by other, outsources. And yeah, they've just got to keep pushing forward, and it'll all be fine.
I do wonder, Matt, whether some of this is the fact that we can't get in the stadium. I mean, you could argue the other way. If we could get in the grounds, there could be people throwing the season tickets, protests, etc. But I do, me personally, not be a game and time. It's just March the 7th. I find it. I mean, you're afforded, like, I'm like, they'll have to Brentford, the world's ending, and Forest were going to win the Champions League. But
you can't do that aggression. You can't get rid of that.
No, you can't.
Screaming that's
people are typing, but I think Twitter's always been a toxic place with a lot of football clubs, but I think it's a bit more since the kind of lockdown, and I do think the current situation has kind of heightened it a bit personally.
I think I was going to say, I think there's a fair point to you what you've just said there, Kosi, because and Matt saying, Saturday afternoon you've had you've been grafting all week at work, and you Saturday afternoon were a great place to just go and scream at someone or shout or call ref or whatever. You could get rid of a lot of aggression there, and actually, because there's no outlet to do that now, even if it's against your own club, the only place really to do that now is like your social media outlets and stuff like that. So there's probably a lot of people saying a lot of stuff that they probably wouldn't usually say. Would they say it to these people's faces? Probably not. On one hand, fans not being in the stadium gives you, your players a new sort of lease of life. They can probably try things that that they might not have tried before. But then on the flip side of that, when they do something and it's not quite right, they've all of a sudden got 15, 16, 17,000 people having a pop at them online. So it's it swings and roundabouts, I think, on that respect. But I know from my own experience through all this that I always feel a bit et up all the time, because I haven't got an opportunity to release all that sort of pent up aggression or frustration or whatever.
Matt, get your phone in publicised. Come on, Matt. What's the number we need to ring? Get some publicity.
It is like, your football's one of them where you go and you can get rid of a lot of your stresses in life in 90 minutes at a football match, and it's one of them things that once that's taken away, people need another outlet to vent, and unfortunately it seems Twitter is one of those ways, and it can get quite toxic quite quickly. I don't think there's anything wrong with fans questioning the club or questioning anything, as long as it's done in a respectful way. By just coming on and saying Mark Devlin's a wanker or whatever, that's just no good to anybody. But to question him and and do it in a way that's respectful, then I'm all for that.
I think you've got to be careful of people representing opinion as fact as well. I think you've got to kind of be a bit more careful of that, because people will express opinions. I do it all the time, of what's going on as a factual event, because that's how they've pieced everything together. And I understand why it happens. And I think Matt's right. I think as soon as you win a few games and Carlos Ball kicks in fully, I think people will forget that. And I realise we're not going to go out and sign a multi-million-pound striker right now because of the way things are. But I think when everything calms down, if we do see a little bit, another Pipa or another Toffler or another Nabisar in an attacking sense, I think all of a sudden people will get more on board that there is some kind of ambition with this board as well. That ambition's been tapered by the current situation around COVID, etc. And they're very rightfully, looking after the football club and the well-being of the football club, which is good, because obviously we don't want to go down that road. But I agree with Matt. I think once the results pick up and we see an attacking threat, somebody that fans can get behind, you can go and you're going to say, I'm really looking forward to seeing Jordan Rhodes. I'm really looking forward to seeing Naki Wells, etc. These attacking players that we've had in the past. If we've got someone we can hang our hat on, that's going to excite us and do something in a forward sense. It may already be there. It may be Josh Karoma. Remember, I'm the president of that fan club. And, it's just someone to excite the fans. And I think as soon as things turn, we get a player in who people can be excited by, and the results turn, then I think all of that nonsense will stop online and people will stop trying to bridge certain gaps.
Well, Matt, as well, you have to remember, when you fellas go to the football 3 or 4 pints before, couple in the ground, 2 or 3 afterwards, you're all asleep by 8 o'clock anyway, so there's no one on social media battering everyone. So that's
when you want us to ring you up, Matt, after those 7 or 8 pints.
Grounds, because everyone's awake at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. That's what it is. You've got too much energy.
Yeah, that could
Brady,
be.
what's your second question, mate?
Well, yeah, no, thanks for all those answers, guys. I'm sure that's either gone down really well or everyone thinks we're in the club's pocket, which shows you Twitter.
In the club's pocket,
Twitter in a
usually. That's the
nutshell.
usual thing.
So my second question, we kind of touched on it. I suppose I got a few comments about it. What did you think of the Andy Booth rumour?
Kosi, I think you'd be good to go to on this.
I think Matt, I just find it uncomfortable talking about someone who's, I don't know, I know football's different, but
someone's job.
I don't know he's a club legend, but yeah, just he's someone's job, and people were demanding to know what's happening with someone's job at the club. I just felt really uncomfortable with it. I think there's probably more to it than meets the eye, but
I think it's bollocks, and I think people just need to remember people are still on furlough, people are still not back at work, and the whole world's in a crazy place at the minute. Someone's made something up, they've run with it, and that's it. And it's ridiculous. No one knows anything. Andy Booth is not on Twitter, any social media. He doesn't tell anyone anything. He's a very private fella. You know what I mean? So unless he comes out and tells people, yeah, I'm leaving, or something comes on, then for me, he's an Huddersfield Town member of staff until someone tells me otherwise.
I think that's a perfect example, Matt, what you said about people presenting things online as being fact when actually they're not. You know, is that... I would imagine that, you know, the person that posted that has been told some information from somewhere. I don't believe that.
They may trust it as fact.
That's what I mean. I don't believe that person would just decide to pick up the phone and just randomly make that up. So someone's obviously planted that information in their mind, and if they trust the person that's given that information, and then they've put it online, then really they should be apologising and saying, "Look, I was told by this person that this were happening, and that's why I, sort of put some pressure on whoever to clarify it." But
Matt, Matt, would you, if you would have been Devlin, would you have tweeted out?
No, because it's not. You can't address every single thing at this moment in time. Boothie does exec boxes, schools, and smooches the people around the grounds and everything. The grounds.
I'd love a Boothie smooch. I'll be honest, legend.
The grounds aren't open, and the schools won't let him in. So what is he going to be doing right now? You know what I mean? Sat playing tiddlywinks at the training ground. So I just think, again, he's not been seen around because he's not. There's nothing to do. There's nothing there. Like the geezer who cleans the stands, he's not been seen as well since the end of March. Has he been made redundant?
No, Gunnosaurus.
What about Terry the Terrier?
Gunnosaurus, yeah.
I know.
Oh, Gunnosaurus has gone. Maybe we could get him up front. Maybe, I don't know.
He's a big man up front, yeah.
Big man. Yeah, he's got a bit of faith.
Maybe Congolo will do an Ozil and offer to pay Booth's wages.
Yeah, I won't count on that.
Yeah, no, thanks, guys. Quite a heated one, but relevant questions rather than random ones this week.
Anyone commenting, Matt, about Boothie on the feed? Anything? Or?
Yeah, Dag Barnett, one of my favourite down at the Mac posters is Dag. He says Boothie is a legend, but why is his job any more important than somebody else? Those involved clearly have an axe to grind, as it wasn't for public.
Soon as you
yeah, and I think that sums it up great.
Hey, as soon as the boots are on, that's it. You're gone.
This is why Dag's one of my favourite down at the Mac posters. He makes a lot of sense.
Nice fellow.
Yeah, so Richard Crowther agrees with you, Matt, 100% on the Mark Devlin interview. Rob Wood says there was a meeting regarding his workload on Monday. I presume he means Boothie, which would be great because everybody loves Andy Booth. You know, we don't forget easily. You know what Andy Booth did.
Workload. So true.
Yeah,
even when it was full swing, I wouldn't call it a workload.
Matt, could you get him in your hairdressers, mate?
Never mind hairdressers. Get him on the podcast, and Boothie can do some podding for us.
I'll be bankrupt in a week.
Boothie doesn't have a lot of hair though, so there won't be a lot of cuts going on there, will he, Matt? But yeah, so Pete Collins has weighed in late and said our two fullbacks must be two of the best in the championship, thanks to the club, and I agree with that. I think Toffolo for me is just such a great. I don't like to spout out Danny Cowley cliches too much because I found him a bit sort of great in some of them. But he always used to say good human beings, and I always used to roll my eyes a little bit at that. But when you think of Harry Toffolo, that's exactly what you think. You know, really top bloke. You know, he's embedded himself into the area brilliantly. You can see him taking his kids to local soccer schools, not Matt Glennon's goalkeeping school, you know, which is obviously available for aspiring goalkeepers out there. Matt, you see how I wedged that one in there? And no worries. And you can see people are saying, he was at Charlotte's, which is Thornhill, Huddersfield area, isn't it? The ice cream parlour over there as well. And, how he immerses himself in the community. I think he's on and off the field. Harry Toffolo is a great signing for this football club. And I think he's getting better week on week. And we're seeing the Spanish Jamie Rayner lookalike on the other flank as well, who's also performing.
I don't know who's more upset about that. Yeah.
I think Jamie will be happy with that one.
Well, being on a football pitch, you would be, yeah.
So yeah, I think that's great. Those full. I'm really excited by our fullbacks. I think they're a real strength to our football
as well. He's getting help now as well. You know what I mean? Because he loves the bomb forward, and he's getting that little bit of protection when he does go forward, not getting exposed, and just his energy levels. I'll say it again. Him and Lewis O'Brien are very similar in that way. 94th, 95th, 96th minute. My God, they're still bombing forward. He had a shot. I think it was, I can't remember which game it was. It was like the 97th minute. He'd done more laps than any man of the pitch I've ever seen. And he's the left back, taking a shot in the last couple of minutes of a game. Crazy, absolutely crazy, superb.
What's it like when a goal goes in? I know we don't score many, but just like, is it just the players going nuts, or is there some of the direct? What's it been like? Is it?
Oh, well, obviously home games are different. And there seems to be a few more people sneaking into the ground as well now. There's a few more little cheers. A few more friends of directors and all that seem to be making their way into ground as well now. So yeah, you get the obviously the players, then the bench, and then a few random people around you. Paul is very loud as well. The Tannoy man behind me, he sits behind me. He's a pain in the ass as well with his shouting and screaming.
If you listen to this, Rambo, get in his ear.
Rambo, yeah, don't worry about that.
Who's the announcing to? I don't understand why they're there.
That's one thing I watched. I watched the Access All Areas thing and it said, "Welcome Huddersfield Town." I was like, who's he saying that to?
No. There was one on an actual pitch doing the full lot the other day. He was having a great time.
Oh, that guy at Brentford's an absolute bell, isn't he?
Was it Brentford? I couldn't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I got him on doing TV one other day. He loves himself. Embarrassing.
The last thing, guys, on the agendas, really, we've got next week. I'm hopeful of getting something out, which I've been doing with Tom Bradshaw.
Pardon? Oh, right. Okay.
So, yeah, sorry, I didn't even think what I was saying then. So next week, I'm hopeful to release a YouTube episode, which Matt Glennon and Dan Porritt are both stars of, which me and Brady have put together with the help of Tom Bradshaw. Matt's probably thinking, what the hell did I do that interview for? And hopefully next week you can see what that was all about, which is a transition from Danny Cowley to Carlos Corberán. So it's on me to edit it at the minute. So hopefully next week it will fill a gap by the international week. But after the international week, we have Swansea City coming up. And because we've probably
Julian Winter, he's causing us problems already, isn't it?
Julian the Whopper Winter, he's been famously known as in some circles. He's been endearing himself there already. God bless him. How do we think that'll go? Because Swansea have started really well, haven't they, Brady? I'm going to go to you, Brady, because I feel like I've been more than most this week, so apologies for that. So Swansea coming up. Swansea started well. They had a great finish to last year. I didn't tip them for the playoffs this year because I thought Rhian Brewster and Gallagher would be big misses for them, but they've started really well and they look menacing, really, at that top level, at top end of this league, I should say.
Yeah, I think I think they've started really well. I think Steve Cooper's a good boss. I think he, obviously, being a England under 17 or 18 manager, he's got those connections, getting young players in. Morgan Gibbs-White, for me, looks quality. I think he's going to be one of the players this season. Not holding out for much of a result there, but I could be wrong. I mean, obviously, international break, we'll see what happens. Everyone comes back, but I think Swansea are going to be a good team. I think they'll be up there around the playoffs again. Not sure if they'll be in the top six, but they'll definitely be knocking on the door. But yeah, they play good stuff as well. I think it'll be a tough game, and is that Swansea? Am I right in thinking it's a little bit?
You are right. Yes. Considering you're doing the previews for these things, Brady, I'm glad that you're on the ball there. So
Brady, get your life savings on Ayew. Ayew hates Huddersfield Town. His brothers hate Huddersfield Town. He always scores against Huddersfield Town. He will score against Huddersfield Town. Ayew will score. He always scores.
You're going to say that one more time, Kosi? Can you get Ayew in one more time?
Who's going to score against Huddersfield?
Ayew, he'll score, but they'll be 3-1 down anyway, so it doesn't matter. But Gibbs-White's a good signing for them, I think.
Great signing.
Yeah, they seem to get some good young uns in, don't they, there, the Swansea? I don't know what they do, but yeah, honestly, it's a good test for us, I think, that on Saturday, isn't it? I mean, you could probably pick an easier game, wouldn't you, to come back with. But I want to see if we've kind of learned from Brentford. I know they're probably not as good a team, but they've still got the good dismantlers if they're on their day. I want to see us kind of improving game by game, which I think we're seeing. It'll be an interesting one. I just hope there's no COVID issues or international issues. You know what I mean?
Well, there is issues because I can't go out in bloody Cardiff on the Friday night. That's what the issue is. We're staying in Cardiff and I can't really do anything. So, no, again, going towards that game, Brentford, I think, are stronger than Swansea. I think Brentford are going to be right up there this year. I think we'll see a couple of players in as well before the Swansea game. So it'll be interesting to see, you know what I mean, of the players that have done well the last couple of games who might miss out. Because we know he's not scared of just going, right, yep, this is my man. He's coming straight in like Crixlow, one of the match, like he said. Nabizar straight in. So we'll see who they're going to bring in. It could be Campbell. Maybe misses out if that front man comes in.
You've got to throw in Lewis O'Brien. Will Lewis O'Brien be ready to play some part? Alex Pritchard as well?
Yeah.
Alex Pritchard.
I thought Lewis O'Brien was going to be all right 2-3 weeks ago. Bloody hell.
He's still playing his computer games, isn't he? That sort of stuff. You know, he needs to complete his game before he can start playing for town again.
What about QPR with a new signing? Would anyone bothered that he didn't come back to town?
Good question. I was going to ask this. Yeah, Chris Willock we're talking about there because it was I think there's something there with Chris Willock. It needs somebody to unlock it, though. I don't think he's ready-made, so to speak. I think Town probably needs somebody more. I think we've bought a lot of projects. I think the next signing we make at the top end has to be a bit more ready-made, hit the ground running.
A few of those lockers that you're talking about. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'd like another Pipa, whatever you call him, but higher up this time. But obviously the international window's closed, but I'm sure there's plenty of decent domestic ones that we can look at who can have the same sort of effect. Especially, and I know this is quite a mean thing to say because obviously West Brom are trying to do it to us, but I would imagine that there'll be some clubs looking to try and sell assets at some point and may take cut price deals, if you like. So it might be worth having a look around and see what's in the.
I would imagine that if Grant does move, we have got 2 or 3 irons in the fire, so to speak, and it just may be a fact that we're waiting for that to happen. And I think Matt Glennon's quite right. It needs to be done. Yeah. It needs to be done before Friday this week, Monday. Let's put a deadline on it and say if you cannot get us the deal that we want by this day, we'll just keep him. Because if not, a typical Town will do the old selling him on 15th at 5 to 12 at night. Yeah. And then we won't be able to bring anybody in, so we'll be knackered in both respects. Then so
I'm sure it'll be down the track, so we'll be.
Sign Ayew, so he can't score against us. He can't score against us. Then sign Ayew, no clause in it. Get him at Swansea, up the Town. Come on,
probably score an own goal.
Pretend that you're going to play in January. He won't play till January.
Yeah. So what about prediction wise? Because what Brady's going to do is when he starts doing his previews, he's going to start adding in our predictions. And I know, because you got the Nottingham Forest one right, so you're probably leading the way at the minute.
Yeah, even a broken clock.
Get me pen and pad then.
Yeah. So I think what we'll probably do is try and create a bit of a wooden spoon and a golden spoon, if you like. I'm not going to tell you what that involves, but so we're going to try and see who's the best tipster out of the lot of us. And Brady's going to do it, so he's going to add that into his previews going forward. So that'll be something not so interesting for the people that listen to us, if you like. So what we're going for, Poz? What are you going for against Swansea?
I'm
going last. Bonus point for Ayew, yeah.
Bonus point for Ayew to score. I'll get that on my accumulator. Swansea away, tough game. Looking on a positive note, let's say a draw. Do you need a specific scoreline?
I don't know, Matt, how we scoring this?
I'm sure we'll work out the rules when I get one right and we can make it.
You've got to have the score.
Let's go with 1-0.
1-0. Just the score, I think, would be. I'll go next because I'm next on the line. I'm going to go 2-1 Swansea. I'm going to predict another defeat like I did against Rotherham, just because I'm a misery. Although I was almost right because I would say 1-0 Rotherham from a set piece, and it was kind of right-ish. Cos?
Desmond 2-2, mate. He's there.
Nice.
2-2.
And then Matt will add you in as well.
Well, because he just stole my line and my score line as well. I'm going Desmond as well.
Oh dear. It's not good
another late equaliser.
Fantastic. Online with that. Are you?
I used to score an own goal.
I've asked online. Pete Collins says 5-0 to Town. Pete Collins is great. He's predicted playoffs. He's predicted playoffs for us as Pete as well. So he's
on the air.
He told us to get on at 8-1.
Hey, stop drinking on a Wednesday, mate. Not good.
Phil Marston says if we bring a strike in, we can beat Swansea. If we don't, we'll struggle. Is 48? Oh, I wonder if that's Izzy Brown. Just can't see it, lads. Nothing to finish off these chances we are making. Tom Bradshaw, who I don't know if he's scribbling some bits and bats on as we go. Amazing work last week. Says 1-0. Diakabi will finally score. I think he's been on the wine as well. Adam Kershaw says, I used to play football with Morgan Gibbs-White when he was around 12. Lol. That's that. Chris Green says, just to win and to make a 3-game run. Yeah, do you know what? I start reading these things out before I've got to the end of it in my head, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay. Paul Gibson says he's a bit worried about Swansea. Closest in style to Brentford, and out of the top teams we've played so far, just hoping for another step forward in style-wise. I think that's a good point as well there. And Paul Gibson then finally says 2-1 Swansea, so he's copied me on that one as well. So we've got those in.
Hang on, you didn't ask me.
Sorry, Brady.
There you go.
I've been doing
you
this
got me to do this bloody prediction, and then you don't ask me. Shocking.
I'm sure you can. We need to ask you, so you're not changing.
We're not interested, Brady. You've tipped us to lose. That's right. Get off, mate.
All right. Okay.
Right, we're going into any other business territory here, so I'm going to throw this open to you guys, and if there's anything that you want to...
Yeah, just England players. Dickheads. Again, Gareth Southgate's a good guy. Why can't they just stick to the rules? What a set of...
I haven't seen it.
No, I ain't seen it. What are you on about?
Oh, Tammy Abraham and the party.
Yeah.
I saw that, yeah.
I hadn't seen that.
I know.
The thing is, though, do you know, if you're having it, because it was a surprise party, apparently, do you get into trouble? But, like, you know, could you accidentally just throw surprise parties for people to get them into trouble?
Well, he's on 150 bags a week, so he can pay his 10 grand fine anyway, so it doesn't really matter, does it?
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Again, is that it, Cos? That's it for you?
Yeah, just Southgate just should have to pick his best team. He shouldn't have to cope with this. He had the dickheads in the last round.
Don't you think that's the same for all managers? Just think about the Huddersfield Town managers last couple of years, having to deal with people in moods, not wanting to play for the team, doing what they want when they're getting paid loads of money. Managers now, you've got to deal with so much crap. Back in the day, you know what I mean?
But Matt, it's country. He's playing for his country, mate. England.
No, I'm talking about just players in general. A lot of players in general.
Yeah, they're not bothered.
Don't respect a lot of things, and it's a podcast in itself. That, to be honest, but back in the day, you told each other how you felt, or you give someone a smack, and that was it. You moved on. But now it's the whinging, it's the sulking. They've got so much power, so much, you know what I mean, and money to go with it as well. That it's not an interest to them. They don't want to play with us. Who gives a shit? You know what I mean? He's going to do that. I'll still play it.
Mesut Ozil were a nice thing, although you could argue money and what have you. But that
I think he's
don't have to do it.
Not delivering for a little while at Arsenal. I think he's took more than he's actually given to Arsenal.
He's basically their mascot anyway.
250 grand a week. Yeah, he is.
350. Yeah.
350 grand a week. What would you even do with that? That's absolutely.
I should buy dinosaur egg and give it to.
You could make your own Jurassic Park inside 2 weeks, couldn't you? Never mind.
Got a new dinosaur for him.
You could open up a complete Jurassic Park and have him running around with all his mates, couldn't you?
Is that any good for you? Yeah.
Right, I think that's a good place to end, guys, unless there's anything else from you guys. No.
Done. No. Enjoy the international break. Yeah,
thank you to everybody online who's tuned in. Sorry if I didn't get through to your comments, but we'll try and get you in as soon as possible. So thanks to the 100 or so people who've joined us online tonight, which is great. Thank you very much to you guys and Matt for joining us, for giving up your time. So thank you very much for that. And you haven't asked us for any money yet, so we might keep asking you back on if you keep that up. So remember, Matt's goal is goal. Get your hair cut by G27 as well, and any other things that Matt does that I can't remember.
Yeah, Matt, get over to see him, mate. You need to see him, man.
Maybe his winery will be
nice. I won't even charge you. How's that?
Oh, dear.
Cheers, guys.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. There a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town, and the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.